As mentioned in my last video, all the material in this Why Do We Have to Work series is based on my book, Hunting, Gathering, and Video Games, which looks like this. And I call it Hunting, Gathering, and Video Games because one of the subjects this book explores is the common link between the workday of the prehistoric hunter-gatherer and today's video game programmers. Now, if we look back at the workday of our hunting-gathering ancestors, we can see that even they still had to go to work to earn their living. But in their case, earning their living had a direct connection with their living. They had to hunt and gather for their food, they had to labor to create their clothing, and had to labor to create some kind of shelter. Now, an advantage to our ancestors' way of life is that they were unlikely to have any doubts in their mind about the purpose of their workday. And this is in contrast with today's world, where many of us do question the purpose of what we're doing during these 40 hours or so a week. Some of us wonder why we have this system where we commute for miles 5 days a week and then labor for 8 hours a day at tasks we don't necessarily care about, like moving assignments from an inbox to an outbox, or dealing with customers or clients about issues that we have to pretend to care about but really don't. And we do this all so we can get paid with either green pieces of paper or more commonly with invisible and these intangible electronic numbers that go into our bank accounts. And some of us doubt the importance of the jobs that we're doing, and we wonder whether the current job is the right one for us. But it's unlikely that our hunter-gatherer ancestors had any thoughts like this. They probably never asked themselves, well, why do we have to go out and gather these roots and berries? Why do we have to sharpen these sticks and go hunting for deer? Why do we have to spend all this time skinning this buffalo? Or probably never asked questions like, well, is this job really the right one for me? Because if you're a hunter-gatherer, it's just crystal clear that your work is about your survival. If you work, you can do things like eat and stay warm in the winter. If you don't work, you do things like die of starvation and freeze. And of course, if you have dependents, they would die of starvation or freezing too. Now, so the hunter-gatherer had this advantage of feeling this life and death importance to their workday. Now, a disadvantage of their lifestyle is that it was one that most of us would find pretty bleak. I mean, for one, you could die from any number of things. A simple infection could kill you, a drought could kill you, a local drought, or just getting your dinner could kill you if it was a woolly mammoth or a bear or anything else that could fight back. And of course, not finding your dinner could kill you also, as the threat of starvation was always there, especially in the winter. Pregnancies could be another source of early death, especially if it was an abnormally large baby or breech birth. Those kind of things could kill the baby, could kill the mom, or kill both. And even aside from survival issues, just the general quality of life of the hunter-gatherer is one that most of us would find unappealing. There's no books, there's no expertly designed musical instruments, no indoor plumbing, no soap, no deodorant, no toothbrush, no dental floss. If you got a cavity, it would probably just rot through until your teeth fell out. And of course, if they got lice, there was no lice medication, so these are conditions they probably just had to live with. But our early ancestors didn't know any lifestyle other than their own, so it's unlikely they felt deprived by what we see as their world's lack of comforts. So why then did the human race move away from that straightforward lifestyle of the hunter-gatherer, whose workday had this life and death sense of importance and vitality to it, to our current world, our current sterile world, some may say, of office cubicles and data entry and commuter traffic jams? Or in other words, why do we move to a workday that many of us find alienating and sometimes oppressively boring? Some of us would even say crushes the human spirit. Now, to answer that question, I'm going to start by looking back about 10,000 years when humans first discovered agriculture. Now, people hadn't invented writing at that time, so we can only guess at why and how it started. But it's probably not too far-fetched to guess that the discovery of agriculture was accidental. People probably brought wild plants back to their shelter, discarded the plants, discarded the seeds, and may have later noticed that plants grew where the seeds had been discarded. And it's not too hard to guess the incentive for deliberately planting one's food, because it has a great advantage of giving some people some real control over their food supply. And that same advantage also explains why people began to domesticate animals like cows and sheep. Now, many of us in today's world, we just take a food supply for granted, that we can always find a grocery store, and even if we have no money, we could always charge it to our credit card. But of course, throughout most of history, that hasn't been the case. So historically, having any way of increasing the odds of securing your food supply, that must have been a great motivating factor. Now, if we had simply switched our workday from hunting and gathering to planting and herding, there would still be no reason to ask the question, why do we have to work? The alternative, that you would starve to death, would be obvious enough. But even though the development of plant domestication and then later animal domestication was purely practical and easy to understand, these steps had side effects that complicate this whole issue of why we have to work. All right, to be continued in part 2.